Perfect. We are officially recording, so we're good.
All right. Well, welcome everybody.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah. So we're talking about survival tips for the holidays. The holiday season brings like a mixture of joy and stress for everyone in the family. And when you add the layers of adoption, trauma, grief, biological families, siblings in other homes, children with different needs, behaviors, the holidays can quickly become overwhelming, even for the most capable families and children. The very root of adoption, their separation of a child from their natural parents, their genes, their heritage, culture, and that separation can cause intense feelings of loss, grief, uncertainty, neglect, abandonment, identity questioning, longing for belongings, and more. Some even experience trauma before birth in the form of prenatal exposure to stress, drugs, malnutrition, etc. When I was doing this, I was thinking about the book, The Primal Wound, where Nancy Verrier, and I'm sorry if I don't have that correct, describes the theory explaining how infants experience trauma prenatally. So it is important to note that each person will process loss differently, and each person who experiences trauma reacts and responds according to their own emotions, their cognitive functioning, coping abilities, their internal perspectives, I guess. And since holidays are typically about celebrating, being with loved ones, visiting, presents many times, parties, all of that comes with a change of routine. So throughout this webinar, we have talked to a number of parents who have identified some key questions, some observation, and some tools. So hopefully we're going to be able to share that with you throughout this webinar. And I'll leave the next one to you, Catherine.
Perfect. Thank you. So just quickly going over our agenda, we can, you can see, I don't need to go through every single one that we're talking about, just to give you an idea of what we're hoping to address. As you read through this, I do want to go over some more of the housekeeping items for how to use Zoom and how we at Adopt4Life are using Zoom for our webinars. So you'll find, as some of you have already used, we do have a chat function. And using the chat function is really an opportunity for you to comment or to share insights, or if you have a question about what we've been talking about or need some clarification, please feel free throughout the entire webinar. We want this to be very interactive. We want you to get out of it what you need. So if you're feeling that what we're talking about may miss the mark for your family and you want us to address something else, if you want us to clarify, please feel free to use that in the chat section. We do also have a question and answer section, so you'll see a Q&A. This can be used as well for specific questions. So as we're going through a slide, if you're saying, hey, I wonder about this, or how can I support this situation, or can you please talk a little bit more about this or that, or if you have a very specific situation that you want to have answered, that you want to share, excuse me, you can also use the question and answer. I monitor both. This will be part of my role as hosting the webinar, is to monitor both the chat and the question and answer. So there really isn't a right or wrong way of how to use it or what channel to use. I do want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. So I want you just to be mindful with the questions you're asking as far as identifying information and with confidentiality. We ourselves will only use your first name when we're addressing you and when we're answering questions. But as far as getting very detailed information, just please know this is something that will be publicly shared. So usually refraining, there's the word, of using your child's full name is usually what we suggest. If you prefer to ask a question anonymously, that is something that you're able to do in the Q&A section. So you just click anonymous. It does come up for everybody to read, but no one will know your name. Or alternatively, in the chat channel, you can address questions specifically to myself or to Heather. For the purpose of this webinar, we're asking you to, if you can just put them for myself, because I actually am controlling the main panel or the motherboard or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I won't always see everything because I have my own slides up.
Exactly. So it's just easier to address everything to me. You will also see there's a raise hand button. So I like to use it in the way of, this is kind of like our tech support. So by raising your hand, this is going to flag both of us on our screens. And this is a way to let us know that we need to stop what we're doing, stop what we're talking about, and address a concern. So if we are breaking up, if the internet connection isn't working, I tend to talk very fast. I tend to talk a lot. So if you're finding that I'm talking too fast for you to catch up, or same with Heather, if she's too soft, too loud, too fast, please raise your hand. Again, we want this webinar to be useful, to be helpful, and we want you to be able to understand and hear us. So I think those are the main ones that I can think of right now. If anything else comes up, again, I think I've said it a few times, we really want this to be engaging and interactive. So please have questions ready. We do have a more formal presentation at the end. We have a bit more of a discussion. So if you find that maybe a question that you have might not be suited for some of the slides, please feel free to save it at the end. If we are time constrained and we aren't able to address a question fully, please know that we will absolutely be following up with you as well. If you are seeing this on replay and there is not a live chat option for you, you are absolutely more than welcome to come and find Heather and myself and ask questions as well. So I see one chat question before we go. You're happy to join. Oh, I'm so glad that you're here, Crystal. Perfect. So please feel free. Engaging. We want to make sure that this is, I'm very excited about this webinar. I'll stop talking and we can get going. Perfect. Next slide.
Next slide is me. So we want to be kind of conscious of and talk a little bit about trauma, and that there has been trauma on this journey for everyone. So adoptive, awaiting, people that are getting ready to adopt, people who have been through disruptions, foster to adopt parents, birth families, our kids, and our extended families. So even though we might be talking specifically about one group, much of this can be related with everybody. So why do we need to understand trauma triggers? Because of our children's background. They were given life by one set of parents who are never forgotten. And in many cases, they were raised by another set of parents, possibly more, on their journeys to our family. Typically, biological children have one set of parents who give them life and then raise them. Our children don't. Biological children will have a sense of identity and belonging with their family due to the shared genetics and the characteristics, mannerisms, talents, that kind of thing. Commonly, adopted children will live with a family whom they share things in common, but they are not genetically related. So they may share some characteristics or physical attributes. However, the genetic piece is missing, and they may feel disconnected as a result of that. Just as biological children can connect with shared genetics, they also have a shared heritage, culture, race with their family. So adopted children often have a different race or culture than their adoptive family, and they may not have experienced a connection like as far as stories about their heritage goes, things like that. And then we add in their experiences prior to joining our families. So there might have been neglect, physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, poverty, a lot of moves or caregivers, separation from loved ones. They could have had multiple experiences of holidays, of joy, including holiday letdown, holiday stress, and also different experiences with traditions and rituals surrounding those times. So guess what? Holidays trigger stress. The holiday season can mean like spending time with family. There's special times, at least in our culture and where we live in Canada here. It's built up to be these great big family times. So what if you aren't or weren't able to spend the holidays or even a big special event with all of your loved ones, including your biological family? It'd be incredibly sad. No matter how much you love spending time or getting presents or Christmas or your adoptive family, somebody is missing. So a piece of you just might feel lonely for them, or just even the idea of them. So I just want you guys to imagine for a minute that you're a child feeling all of those complex feelings. Bang, trigger alert, right? Stress plus sadness equals complex feelings, which young children might not be able to cope with. So that's where, sabotaging, meltdowns, hyper or overstimulated children, that's when all that happens. And I realize it's not just holiday seasons, but like special events, starting school, birthdays, things like that. So we got a lot of hyperness, lots of oversensitivity, lack of sleep, different attitudes towards things, maybe some sassiness. There's projecting onto others, meltdowns. When Catherine and I were doing this, we were even just talking about like the anniversary of a date that they entered into foster care. Some of our kids came from orphanages. And another word that we use quite frequently is a traumaversary, and the build up to it. So not just for our children, but for ourselves, as well as others that may be around within that family unit. Other things could be like the gotcha days. Maybe it was close to a special holiday, and this holiday triggers that. There's just so many potential triggers, and we've learned to either like expect that, these are real, authentic reactions to complex emotions and feelings around times of change and times when routines are different. And we prepare to either kind of deal with it or limit the activities that we choose to participate in. So we also got talking about our own triggers. Some of the above are definitely triggers. And of course, energy zappers. I've talked to quite a few parents recently who are just like overwhelmed, emotionally drained. What about sadness surrounding your road to parenthood? This time of year, many people are missing their own loved ones. They're missing previous memories. They're feeling the stress of like getting it right. This is our first Christmas with our child, or, the kids are getting older. We really want to make this, something to remember. Also just like getting everything done, right? We got all these other things that are happening with our kids, and we still have all of these things we need to do. So we're trying to meet everybody's needs, going to like school plays and concerts. We just had parent-teacher interviews, holiday parties. Let's face it, it's quite the juggling act, and it can leave us really, really drained.
I remember even when my kids first came home, our first Christmas.
Yeah.
I put so much pressure on myself to feel as if I had to make up for what they might not have had because they were in foster care for a few years. And the pressure and the guilt that I had for that just built up so much in my mind that I was so oversensitive to, well, this isn't a picture perfect moment, or the kids are melting down. I've ruined Christmas. So it's so easy to kind of get into that cycle ourselves, right?
Yeah, we can. It's very easy to. So I think that kind of leads into our next slide, focusing on ourselves a little bit.
So there's a good little segue we did there.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk just a little bit about self-care as one kind of major thing to this whole surviving the holidays. Um, there's a lot of people out there that are celebrating and spreading the holiday cheer. But there's a lot of people that have mixed emotions. They can be triggered really easily. They might be feeling sad, let down, like you were just talking about, Catherine. Excited at the same time, expectant, maybe a little bit of depression as well, because we're also experiencing kind of a higher level of stress. So we wanted to kind of talk about, I'm not sure if you guys all remember, but in Pride training, that air mask, putting that on first. So let's put it on. So whether you're an adoptive, a kin, foster, customary care, moral, a waiting parent, whatever, parent who has experienced a disruption, possibly death of a child, somebody that might be watching, might be a birth family. All of these strategies are important. So one of the first things is just being honest with yourself and others, right? We all know suppressing feelings, that doesn't do ourselves any good. And it's okay to just not feel okay, right? So giving yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling. Cry if you need to, write in a journal, scribble. I have this little book that it's a journal, but I have pages where it's just scribble, 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 right? Because sometimes I just don't have the words, but just to get it out feels good. Be honest with yourself, right? Decline something if you're not up to it. Because pretending to feel something that you're not feeling, it doesn't only hurt yourself, but it hurts others as well. And our kids, they're a little more sensitive sometimes, and they can really feel the things that we may be trying to hide. Once again, let's find that mask. Let's talk to somebody. Seek out people that can lend like an empathetic ear. Offer words of encouragement to us. It can raise our spirits to get, just that relief of not having to carry all of that inside of you. I'm always amazed at how much better I feel after confiding in somebody about how I am feeling. It's kind of like the weight of the world's lifted off my shoulders for a little bit. Our kids experience this too, right? So we can kind of plan an outlet for them to be able to do that. Having my kids yesterday, my cousin is down from the States visiting, and I actually went and had just had a little visit with her, and then she came to my house and spent a little bit of time with each one of my kids. It was just like a little break for them, right? They're starting to feel a bit of the stress with Christmas plays and different things too. So it was a break for them to just have somebody else to talk to, somebody else to do something with. Taking care of yourself with all the preparations, the activities, we're managing everybody. And it's important to set aside a time that is just for us when we're not the planners, the organizers, the caregivers. We need to recoup some of that time and reconnect with ourselves. So I found this hard in the past, but I attended a webinar one time, and it had all of these, like, just what is self-care? And because my image of self-care was, I got to go on vacation. And I realized that, you know what? Having a hot shower or drinking my tea when it's hot, that is self-care as well. So I don't know, like, listen, maybe people can we do a poll? What are some of the things that people like to do? Like, I don't know, hot shower, music. Something I've just recently done is I go and get my hair washed and blow dried at the hairdressers.
Get the poll to work.
You know, it's great. And at the one I go to, they massage your hands with cream, you know, do all that kind of stuff. I love it. And it's so relaxing. Something else?
I'm not able to do a poll, but if you want to even put
Okay.
in the chat channels ways that you
Oh,
find helpful for self.
yeah, somebody said yoga. That's a great one, right?
I love hot yoga.
Oh, I've never done that. I'm gonna have to try that one.
Yeah.
I always love being near the water and outdoors. I find it really grounding. So sometimes I just like get in my vehicle and drive close to, you know, somewhere where there's a river or water running. And I just kind of stop and watch, you know, what's going on outside, right? Watch the trees, watch the birds, the squirrels running around. And it's just that kind of few minutes of life stopping, the frantic pace stopping. So it's kind of that whole mindfulness, just stop, notice, and breathe.
Yeah. We have another another person saying getting a mani-pedi. Yes.
Oh.
Having a tea, just watching a show. Someone suggested aquafit. I actually did aquafit with my mother-in-law like weekly, and she loved it. Someone said, this is silly, but I love getting groceries all by myself.
Oh,
you were just saying that.
we were just talking about that. I like to go grocery shopping. Like, I was just thinking about this. After this webinar, I might have to go do groceries. But I love going late at night when there's no kids. It's just me. I get a cup of coffee or
That's
tea.
exactly what the attendee said. Grabbing a latte and just wander alone. And I think it's almost a little bit self-serving is when you see parents and they're rushing with their kids and you're like,
Yeah, mine are at home. Yeah,
absolutely.
So self-care, something else too, right? It's not always just about us. Do something kind for someone else, right? That lifts our spirits when we do something for someone. I don't know, like one year we went out and caroled. We went and sang at a nursing home. We just grabbed a couple people that we knew, and the kids, you know, we went to this nursing home and we started singing. One of the people there started playing the piano, and we had a great time. It was awesome. And you know, that's doing something kind, but it's also doing something for us, right? Maybe during the holidays, serving at a food bank, or picking an angel from the angel tree and filling a care box for somebody. All of those things are sort of putting our kindness out there, and it's lifting our spirits. Another thing is just, you know, in those moments, distract yourself. Just once again, stop, notice, and breathe, right? Put on some music, dance, or find a project that you can focus on. I have this like disc that is all music that I used to love when I was a teenager, and it's called Mama's Mix. And I put it on, and you know, I just listen to it sometimes because it just brings me back to really happy moments in my life. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of things, but we also have a couple resources that we can send out after or post. I'm not sure how we do that, Catherine, but
so once the webinar is finished, what I'll do is I will send a copy of the webinar, but also the resources.
Okay.
We upload this live on YouTube. I'll put the resources down as well so that everybody can see what we're talking about.
Okay, that sounds good. So yeah, many of these things that for you can be considered regardless of where you are on your adoption path.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody have any questions there, Catherine, before I get on to the next slide? I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking.
I don't know why we scheduled you to do all the talking. I'm just having the life of
I don't know.
Lexington
You got
here.
an easy time on this one.
You're doing fabulous. Keep
Oh,
going.
well, thank you. All
There's
right.
no questions yet, so if you want to keep going, I do talk it. Oh, did I go ahead? Oh no, this is I think I went up too much. Plan.
Okay.
No, I do talk eventually, folks. So
Okay.
go
So
ahead.
planning ahead and communications, family event tips. Um, so I put kind of like behaviorally challenged children, I guess, often find the holiday season anxiety provoking, and we can kind of run into avoidance. There's bound to be like gatherings that are kind of disruptive, or like socially inappropriate ways that they're trying to communicate with us. When those types of things occur, many of us and many of you guys have talked to us about our extended family and how they can be really quick to offer advice to us. Snap judgments are made. They, maybe they'll step in trying to help in ways that are actually less than helpful for us. Maybe they cause things to, kind of go the other way. Extended family.
Fill them with sugar and say, "Oh, but I'm grandma, so that's my job." Meanwhile, you're realizing, "Well, grandma, you're not going to be here in 3 hours when the sugar crash happens."
Exactly. Yeah. Ours has the spoon right in the ice cream in the freezer. So one of them, yeah. So extended family, I mean, they mean well, right? Many times, but they might not be familiar with how we parent our children. Like maybe it's a situation where we don't see them, really, really often, or we only see them at certain times of the year. They live far away, whatever. They might not have had experience parenting a child with like something like autism or anxiety, depression, some of those oppositional behaviors. A child that has had trauma in their past. So with everything that's going on when you're at these events and gatherings, it's unlikely that we're really going to have time to explain. So we kind of came up with a few things to sort of help with that. When visiting someone's home, ask your extended family member to make a room available as kind of like a low stimulation room where you or your child or both can kind of retreat if things get difficult ahead of time.
In my family too, we have 3 children, as most of you know. 2 of them have special needs. Our eldest is very complex special needs. And we actually keep a pop-up tent in our truck.
Yeah.
So anytime we're bringing our children, from the get-go, we have a very, very big extended family, 6, 7, 8 degrees of cousins and all of their children. But from the get-go, everybody knows that the tent is Serenity. My daughter's is our Serenity zone, which is kind of serendipitous. It works well with the Serenity zone. If she goes in the tent, no one is allowed to touch the tent. We put blankets. It's calming some sensory items for her, but it works well because not everybody has the space. So we literally set it up. Sometimes in a kitchen or in a family room or, in a big walk-in closet, and we set up her tent, and it's the same color in the same way. So it's almost like a safety for her, and she knows to go to her pink tent where any chaos, she can go to the same place, and it's the same soothing ideas. And it's been working very well for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. Also, letting your kids know what to expect from the gathering, discussing alternatives with them, skills that they might need to use when they are feeling overwhelmed or they don't want to participate. Go over some of that with them, right? maybe bringing a backpack for your child or some kind of bag with activities or relaxation tools. If possible, have your kids sort of practice with them beforehand. We have this big breathing ball, and it expands, and that's something that my kids have had for a long time. And something like that would be perfect because it will distract them, but it also, since we practice with it, they automatically know that when they do their breathing with the ball, right? I don't know if anybody's seen those. They're those really colorful balls, and they're kind of, they close, but then when you open them, I don't know, they're just really cool. Let your extended family know how you will deal with difficulties. It's, of course, it's not really realistic to have all your extended family members trained and knowing how to handle things when, you're trying to support a struggling child. But communicating can reduce the potential that your child might kind of split adults and get everyone arguing. Let your extended family members know that you understand that they might not do things the way you're doing them, but you're trying, just tell them you're trying to follow the advice of professionals, and you could really use their support in doing so. And, they might not understand why you're doing something, but there is a reason that you're doing it that way. As well, if they want to share their concerns, just ask them to write them down or talk to you about it later, not at the event. Because that's when kids overhear stuff too, right? You really shouldn't be doing that. When you were little, we used to blah, 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 right? And your kids are going to overhear that, right? And they're going to feel uncomfortable.
I think with that as well, talking ahead of time to your kids and having a conversation with your family members about hugging and kissing, because
Yes.
that's a big thing. I am from a strong Italian background, and you kiss on the cheek, on the lips more than once, and pinching the cheeks and hugging. And from my culture, not doing that is a sign of disrespect, especially for nonas in the older
Yeah.
aunts. So that was a big shift for my family to hear that, because as far as they were concerned, oh well, they don't love me, or they're not bonding, they're not attaching with me, because the new children in the family aren't hugging and kissing. So we had to have a lot of real conversations and explain it in a way that they can understand that we teach our children to express love in a way that's comfortable with them, because they all come from different backgrounds. So how I've learned to intervene that way is, hey, it's time to say goodbye to so-and-so. Kai, my son, would you like to give a hug, a high five, or a wave? And so it gives him the power, and it still feels like my family members are still kind of getting that feedback.
Yeah.
It changes depending on his mood and what's going on and how overstimulating it is. But it's definitely something to keep in mind, that it's very easy for a family member to just kind of give the bear hug, which could potentially be triggering.
Yeah. And with most of our extended family that's close, they're aware of the hugs, that don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Sometimes we rarely, with one of our children, get those. So, we do the high five, fist bump, or whatever, or just bye.
Yeah.
And they respect that. I think most important for you as a parent is to just kind of practice your own relaxation skills before and during whatever event you're at. And this can help you kind of avoid falling into those power struggles or those unhealthy conversations. And for all those who are not the parents of a child with difficulties, but will be sharing your holiday with one of those parents, just remember to ask about their needs in advance, and then prepare to be flexible. You know, it helps take some of the stress off of them and off of the kids as well. I think in all of this kind of thing, it's respect, right? Respect for yourself, respect for your child, respect for the people that are there, and just trying to make it the best possible environment for your child to thrive in.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's me now.
Yeah, we have a little bit here about
I think, yeah, this is me now, right? So you get a little bit of a break, Heather. That's great. And again, everybody, please feel free to comment if you have questions, or if you want to share anything, please feel free to keep that dialogue coming. But we wanted to address planning ahead. Also wanted to make sure that we're talking about awaiting parents, those who are in the getting ready stages. Maybe some of you have been preliminary matched, you're in the transition, but your children aren't in your home yet. You may have, this might be your first holiday post a family disruption or a change in family dynamics, foster to adopt families, as well as birth families and first families. So we want to talk about a few things about, again, boundaries. And I think, Heather, you talked about that very well in the previous slide, and just knowing about putting up your own boundaries, knowing when to say no, and understanding that for you as a person, what that's going to look like, where you are in your own grief, in your process, in your own journey, is going to look differently for everybody. With that being said as well, if you do have a spouse or a partner, that's going to look differently for them as well. So it's key to make sure that you keep the communication open, that it's okay to say no, that it's okay to be able to have different feelings at different times. So perhaps you're overwhelmed one day, it doesn't mean it's going to stay stagnant. Our journeys are ever folding. Our feelings, our grief, our own emotions are ever folding. I find that a lot of times that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and society puts a lot of pressure on ourselves to have timelines for our feelings. So especially for first families, for those who've experienced disruptions, if you've said no to a match and this is your first holiday after saying no to a match, someone who has been through it, I appreciate how overwhelming, how guilty it can feel about having a holiday and having those thoughts of, well, this could have been the first holiday with them home, or are they now going to have to celebrate a holiday in foster care again because I said no? There's a lot of pressure and a lot of almost like negative scripts that we can put on ourselves. And I think it's really important to honor that, to honor where you are in the journey, in your own feelings, and to know that there really isn't a timeline for any of this. I will be very open and honest that I've experienced a second trimester miscarriage around the holidays many years ago. It still hurts around the holidays for me. And although, yes, time does make it easier, and now that we have children and we have a lot of different things in our lives, it doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt. So I think part of our preparing and planning ahead is just being true to ourselves and true to where we are in our journeys with our own feelings. For awaiting parents,
I just wanted to say to that too, I can identify with that. I had a second trimester, and I actually had to carry over the Christmas. And, you know, it brings up a lot every Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there, and I just have to remind myself that, okay, I'm remembering this, I'm feeling this, and it's okay.
Yeah. And even though there might be comments of saying, well, it happened so long ago, or, oh, but you must be so blessed or happier because you have children now, it doesn't negate the feelings that we go through, and it doesn't change our experiences. And so no matter where you are in the process, I just want to make sure that we're sending the message that it's okay to not be okay in these times. It's okay to need to reach out, to have those boundaries, and just plan ahead. So there are going to be those tough questions. I remember clearly as an awaiting parent, um, going into family parties, uh, with being bombarded with questions. Where are you in the process? How many children? How many this? And especially after I said no to a match, and how do I answer that? And should I be answering these questions? So I think putting up those boundaries is huge, and knowing that it's okay to say no to parties, that it's okay to not answer questions, that it's okay to protect yourself and your heart a little bit during these times, because we know that, again, going back to these triggers, our own triggers are so important. I also want to touch about just the frustrations that have been shared from the community about the timelines and waiting. So as you're waiting for a match, as you're waiting to hear back, and some of us are starting to hear back from the EOIs that we've put in at a potential, the adoption resource exchanges. And then
we have a fair number of parents at the moment that are,
we're starting to hear back, or deciding should we, shouldn't we, or trying to get other questions. And of course, then the holidays come upon us, and it's just so much more emotion and so much more, it's so overwhelming. And then of course, on top of it all, then we have workers go on vacations, and agencies shut down, and you don't hear back from people. And we appreciate that itself can have so much frustration in it. So I think just protecting your head, protecting your heart, and knowing that this is going to be a very slow down time. December, things are very slower pace. It's going to be a frustrating time, but know that communities are out there to support you. So communities like us at Adopt4Life, reaching out to the ACO. We are going to touch on some other resources as well. But we really wanted to make sure that we start the conversation, maybe continue the conversation, to that these are realities of families, anyone touched by adoption.
Yeah, and I think it's important to add there too that because staffing is usually a skeleton staff during that time, the focus is not on getting home studies completed, not on contacting people. The focus is on, are these kids safe? We have a phone call and we need to find a home right away. Stuff like that. And that is their focus over, over the holidays sort of thing, when there isn't a lot of staff there.
Absolutely.
But they do get back to regular jobs, first week of January kind of thing.
And everyone gets back to it, and it's just about knowing that this is just part of the process. And I don't know how many times people have heard things like adoption isn't for the weak of heart, and it's true. And no matter where you are in the journey, having your children move home, Heather and I and any adoptive family can attest that it doesn't mean that it gets easier. It just shifts, it just changes, and the hard might look a little bit different. So we just wanted to have a conversation. I think even awaiting parents who have hoped to have a child for the holidays, it could be hard having to spend another child without them again.
Yeah.
I have spent so many times so many holidays as an awaiting parent, and you can see the quote here that we got from another adoptive parent saying that this will be the last one, and then it isn't. And then you say, but this might be the last one, and maybe some of you started to collect some items that you might have gotten for the child, and things that you can to help secure. But you're absolutely right, is that it's so hard to play these mind games with yourself and to try and be able to survive it. And we just want to make sure that you guys are prepared for those feelings, and to know that it's okay to be at this point and question and to get frustrated. And really, the message we want to share is own your true, like we've written, own your ugly truth. It's okay. It's okay. Whatever you're feeling, own it, and know that you're not the only one feeling it.
Yeah. You know what? I have run out of Christmas so my husband's family is pretty big. Extended family is Newfie. It's large. Yeah. I have left in tears because, it was really hard. The kids are, when we didn't have children, all my cousins were, had kids younger before we had children. And, you know, they're tracking Santa. They're all getting their Christmas Eve pajamas on. And it was too much. Like, I ran out of there in tears. You know, like, and then I had the other extreme where when we were waiting, you know, I would write a letter in my journal to our, you know, put child of the future or children of the future of what I was thinking about, you know. So it's a roller coaster, right? You're going to experience all kinds of things, but like what you said, own your ugly truth, or just own your truth, right? This is the truth right now, and this is what you're feeling.
Yeah. And know that no matter what you're feeling, it's okay to feel that.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get overwhelmed around this time and question if this is the right path for you, to question if it's ever going to happen, to feel overwhelmed, to feel maybe you're having a match and now it's happening so fast and you feel like you can't put the brakes on it. Trust me, we have all been through these emotions and feelings, and just know to reach out to and to make sure that you're getting that support, because it's vital. It's self-preservation sometimes, right? So
yeah,
absolutely. So just moving on, because I am mindful of time, and trust me, we can just stay on.
Yeah, let's move down. I think this is a really important, the next slide is very important.
Yeah. Someone said, what makes it awful is walking past your nursery every night. I hear you. Exactly. Yeah. Trying to distract yourself with it all. Absolutely. So we want to talk about also supporting your children. So we talked about how to plan ahead, how to sort of protect your own heart, but we also want to make sure that we're talking about how to support our children. So we got this is Dan Hughes, right, Heather? Is this right?
Yeah.
Dan Hughes.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm getting the name. And this is place. So keeping things playful, so keeping the tone light, upbeat, understanding that this is hard on them too. So doing what we can to keep this positive, giving them cuddles if they'll allow it, is supporting them in the way that they'll allow, that they're feeling comfortable, loving them, showing them love. I can attest that with my son, who is 6, he has a hard time with physical contact. He is a very rambunctious, has a very low threshold for self-regulation. It's very easy for him to misbehave, especially when he's overstimulated. So when for the holidays, it's so important. And if you have a child similar to mine, it's so important to just react to that with love and to appreciate the space that they're coming from. Again, acceptance for who they are. This isn't picture perfect. This isn't the Joneses. We're not Facebook. Facebook puts puts life in a very different accept life for what it is.
When we were discussing this, Catherine, you had said it's like that picture of what's behind the picture, right?
Yeah, it's like there's this meme that's going around Facebook, and I wish I found it in time, but it's basically like, behind every beautiful family photo is a parent going nuts behind the scenes to try and get their pictures, and threatening them or bribing them with a cookie to sit still. And that's totally the truth, right? And just accept it. We talked about owning your truth. Own your kids' truth.
Yeah.
It's not sunshine and roses the whole time. And sometimes your kids are going to melt down and say things that might embarrass you or be inappropriate, and that's just a part of the journey.
Yeah.
And respecting their curiosity. So with this too, it's always about obviously respecting boundaries, and you want things to be appropriate, but you want to also create an environment for where your child feels comfortable in questioning and in learning in different ways that they can. So encouraging conversations with family members during the holidays, and especially about traditions. And we'll get into this a bit more, but because my kids are getting a bit older, they are asking about traditions and how it's different for them. They do have a different cultural background from myself and my husband, so they wanted to learn about, well, how is it different? How does my first family celebrate it? Sometimes you won't know those answers, so we can talk about ways in which you can incorporate and respect that. and obviously this is a big one, is empathy, right? And just empathize where they're coming from. And it's a lot easier said than done when our kids push the buttons and we're dealing with our own emotions. But I think sometimes in the midst of it, when you feel yourself getting triggered and you feel yourself reacting as opposed to responding, I think that's a way when you can kind of step back, go to the washroom, go to another room, and just try and remember that empathy piece, because you know our children's behavior is for a reason. It is a form of communication, and it can be coming from a place of hurt, a place of they're just not too sure how to deal with their own emotions. So I think that's important. Heather, do you have anything else to add for this slide?
Well, I just want to say that this slide here, we will send that out. I have had this posted in my house since day one, and it is probably one of the most, the thing that goes through my brain all the time. You know, how do I address this using either something playful, something loving, something accepting, something curious, or something empathetic with my children? And it becomes second nature to you. But I had this posted, and I still, now we're renovating, so I don't have it now, but I have had it posted for 12 years. I love it. I live by it. So, and it applies not only to our own children, but everybody. You know, that person that is at the holiday party that is, you know, maybe having a rough time, or is, you know, acting inappropriately or whatever, you can apply this to them too, and how you communicate with that person, right? Your children see that, and you're role modeling to them. So anyways, I just wanted to say we'll send this out because this is a very, very important one, I feel.
Yeah, and Dan Hughes is amazing. So if you haven't
Yeah.
had a chance to read any books, it's definitely one of the must that we suggest often.
Yeah.
So moving along, downtime. This is me again. So awesome.
Yeah.
So this is it. I'm gonna help myself, everybody.
Oh no, you're outing yourself?
Oh wait, before I out myself, wait a second here.
Oh.
Can you repeat the author? Dan Hughes. So it's Dan, last name is Hughes. Is his last name. Well, we can put a link to maybe like an Amazon link for you guys to read it. Daniel Hughes. There we go. Perfect.
There you go.
There we go. Perfect. So I'm outing myself about screen time. I am an iPad Fortnite parent. Okay, I've said it.
Me too.
My kids play Fortnite. They watch their iPads. I give them my phone at 5:30 in the morning when they wake up, and I need an extra 20 minutes of sleep, and that's how I get my sanity. I'm doing it. I feel better. I've outed myself. So that being said, it is okay to use screen time for your children for your sake of sanity. That being said, I do want to say that I appreciate that screen time and children don't always mix. Sometimes 20 minutes of screen time means 3 hours of behaviors and meltdowns. I appreciate that Fortnite is not for everybody. There's a lot of ethics. There's a lot of parenting thoughts around this. I completely respect where people are coming from. I just wanted to put the screen time in there to know that it is okay. We watched Rick Carroll, who is on our board of directors. He's a social worker, a psychologist with us, and he did a preparing for the summer webinar for us and surviving the summer. And he had a great perspective on screen time, because it's so easy for us to judge ourselves and to judge others about screen time. And really what the message that he said that stuck to me, and I think really stuck to a lot of parents, is that you need to find your win in the moment. And sometimes allowing your child to play Fortnite for 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour or 4 hours, whatever it is that you need in that moment to survive, that is a win. That's not a reflection of who you are as a parent, because we know that's just a small piece of it. But if you need to give your child an iPad so that you can make dinner in peace, so that you can get yourself and fill your own bucket for 20 minutes, so that you're able to then parent your highly behavioral child, then please feel free to do that. This is a judge-free zone. So maybe you'll feel better if it's an educational game, and that's fine. Make sure there's parameters. Obviously, you want to make sure safety is a top priority. So in our case, we stop the chat functions as well as the voices so the kids can't hear it. And we allow it. We use Circle, Disney Circle, which is a way to monitor screen time. And that's how we do it. Someone says, I need to buy an iPad. Trust me, I was the best parent before I became a parent. I was an anti-screen time parent until I had children. And yeah, so there it is. Use screen time if that's what you need to survive, to get some downtime.
Yeah.
Respite is a big one. Respite, I think, is difficult. A lot of people find that respite means hiring someone, a trained professional, to come into your home to take your child out to work on skills. And that can be a part of respite. But what respite can also mean is hiring someone to clean your house. It could mean getting a high school student or a neighbor or someone you trust to stay in the home with your children while you're there, so you can do laundry without them throwing the clothes everywhere as you fold them, because trust me, that happens in my house. Respite also means being able to use a break the way that it works for you as a family. So yes, having someone come to take your children out of the house, or someone to come so you can leave the house, is absolutely essential. But respite ultimately needs a break. And if that means that you need to pay someone to clean your toilet because the thought of it is just so overwhelming to you, sometimes that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Is we just have someone else.
My friend and I, we swap kids.
Oh, smart.
So we both have kids around the same age. We swap. She'll take them, or I'll take one of hers, she'll take one of mine, that kind of thing too, right?
Exactly. So it needs to be, and it needs to work for you as a family, and it's going to be different for every family, but getting respite is key and essential for downtime. And if you want to know what respite options are out there, please feel free to connect with your parent liaison. Each region has different programs, and we know how vital this is. Asking for help, again, I think we already talked about this, so I don't want to spend too much time on asking for help, but ask for help. No, it's okay to ask for help. You're not a super parent. You can get help with this. You can ask, pull on your resources. The big one in my house is I'm so bored. My kids are bored. Everything's boring to them. It's okay for your kids to be bored. We like to have, much like Heather talked about, she has like to bring a backpack for events. We actually have a board box. And so we cycle out different activities, and these are activities that they can do independently. That's educational, that's engaging. So we have like a fort building kit that they can do. We have a marble run maze, and there's different things that our kids, we have little science and craft things. So if my kids come to me saying, I'm so bored, they get the box, and after an hour of the box, they can come to me and tell me how bored they are again.
Yeah, we have pipe cleaners, that Jenga game, Tinker toy, that great big bin of Tinker toys. Lots of paper and pencils, activity books, things like that.
Absolutely. And it's always so interesting to me that when my kids tell me how bored they are, and I ask them, I was like, well, how about we clean the house together? Magically, they find things that aren't boring anymore.
Yeah.
It's always something that we use, is there's a way, and this isn't as a bribe or as a threat. It's like, well, let's do something together as a family. And if that's boring to them, well, finding initiative to find something on their own is important.
Yeah.
Social media, I think, is big. We talked about keeping up with the Joneses and just appreciating that life isn't what social media portrays it to be. And that it's okay to turn off social media. It's okay to not have to take your picture perfect because you don't feel like it, or because a kid might be hanging off the chandelier. Right? Along with, for older children and older youth as well, using social media is much like the screen time. So as long as you're feeling safe, they're using it appropriately. If them going on Facebook for 20 minutes of chatting with their friends is what you need to give yourself downtime, then you know what? That's your win for the day.
Yeah.
So that's my soapbox about downtime and screen time. So
yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I think we're going to move towards visits, because a lot of people had a lot of questions about that.
Absolutely. We're running out of time.
In order to get to that, we just want to kind of preface it first with our first family perspective. I always thought the first holiday without my child will be the hardest. It turns out every holiday without them is. While trying to adjust to what this new meaning of family is with open adoption, turning to my children's now parents has been a source of strength. I know I'm not in this alone, and they have helped me to reshift my thinking of family. Is it easy? No, but over the years, it has become more manageable. This is from a birth parent with an open adoption. So a little bit more perspective on this. Whether it's consent or apprehension, the pain of loss is real. It doesn't matter how confident that birth parent was about the placement, the parents that they chose for their child. It doesn't matter how good the relationship is with the adoptive parents. It's hard. It's a time when the pain of separation intensifies. The would haves, the could haves, or the should haves take root. And the first families, it makes you question the adoption plan. Makes you question, what could I have done differently? Did I do the right thing? Question your self-worth, your sanity. The fact is that many birth parents struggle with the absence of the child, specifically around holidays. They undergo a period of intense self-examination, intense grief.
Yep. And no matter if it's a consensual or apprehension.
It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If they're going to counseling or they've had any grief counseling, they're told, and people in general, when you have lost somebody that you love, the common recommendations are reaching out to those that were close to the people you were missing, sending a card or a gift, making a phone call or a video call to that person, doing a homemade gift, writing them a letter, hanging an ornament on the tree or lighting a candle for them, surrounding yourself with loved ones. So we have a little poem that a birth mother wrote. We've modified it slightly, and we're just going to play it for you. And then we're going to talk about visits.
Yeah, visitations and what that will look like. Okay, so I hope this works in my trial, so everyone please bear with me. If this doesn't work, please let me know.
Okay.
All right.
It was the night before Christmas, and all through the world, birth moms were praying for their precious boys and girls. One certain birth mom was trying not to mourn, for this Christmas was the first since her baby had been born. Knowing her decision was one for the best, she lights a candle in memory, then sits down to rest. The wick of the candle flickers with light. The wind outside is howling, finding little comfort on this lonely night. For this is the first of many, she will feel this great loss. For her child reaps the benefit, she simply pays the cost. She takes out an album and gently dusts off the cover. It is all she has left to feel like a mother. She treasures each photo of her little one. They are her only ties to her precious son. Silently, a tear slips down her cheek. She wipes it away quickly so she doesn't appear weak. Christmas will never be the same again. She will always be thinking of her little man. She knows through her pain, for him this was right, but for her unselfish deed gives little comfort that night. Her arms are still empty, her heart is still breaking. He is with someone else, and she is left aching. Her heart sits on each page of the little photo book. In his eyes, his little face, the way he looks. The clock strikes midnight. It's officially Christmas morn. For the first that he's had since the day he was born. She can't handle her pain. She can't hide her tears. This was the first of many long, painful years. But the light that she sees at the end of all this is the smile on his face. He is truly blessed. With that thought, she slowly readies for bed. To sleep all night, dreams of him in her head. She slowly lies down and heads off to sleep, knowing his memory she will always keep.
Okay. I know our next slide is about cultural pieces and traditions, but I'm wondering if we can skip over to visits, because we've talked a lot about traditions and things like that. We can come back if we have time.
Yep, I agree.
But a lot of people wanted to talk about visits. So visits around the holidays. I'm hoping that with that perspective of the first family and the poem from the birth mother, we can jump back into Daniel Hughes there with a little bit of maybe some curiosity towards feelings and some empathy. And in saying all that, though, we do need to set boundaries, right? There's no doubt that first families will be excited at the prospect of spending time, having visits, seeing how the kids are doing, sharing these special moments with them. For some families who have openness, that includes many, many people, birth parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, maybe the foster families, the extended families of all of them, and it can get overwhelming with what to expect and how to manage all of that. So setting boundaries beforehand and having a firm plan in place will help everybody. So for instance, sometimes you could combine visits. Other times, you know, this person, we can't visit with this person. These people have to be separated, all of that kind of stuff. But we need to remember too that it doesn't have to, the visit part of it, if you have that with openness, doesn't have to be right at Christmas. Perhaps it's a few weeks before or a little bit afterwards. Maybe on Christmas Eve or Boxing Day or Christmas, there's a 5-minute video call or a phone call. Maybe we put something in the mail that they will receive a few days before the holidays. So finding that balance where everyone is comfortable, it's not easy, but we need to find that balance and set those boundaries, but remain open to communication and be empathetic towards our children's first family. It's a great first step.
Yeah, and I think for our family, our openness is ever changing. So we actually started with no contact for many years.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just letters and pictures. And so we would include pictures of holiday, probably, you know, pictures with Santa, because we celebrate Christmas. And, you know, and as we've developed this relationship, it's easy for me to get it was easy for me to get my guard up, because it was, well, I want to see it. I want to do this, or can we do this? And I think having that conversation ahead of time and being open and honest about what your parameters are is important. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. These conversations aren't always easy, because we appreciate where everyone's coming from.
Yeah.
I think setting up those boundaries and be very open, but at the same time, be open to compromise with it. So for a lot of years, how we incorporate, maybe this is incorporating the traditions and rituals a bit more as well, how we've incorporated it is that we would light a candle on Christmas Eve for our children's birth families and first families. we would talk about, you know, in their culture, this is how they would celebrate the holidays. So we incorporated that. Now that we're starting visits, it's been very important for us to make sure that everyone feels included, that everyone has a say, everyone has a voice, but that the children's best interests remain at heart. And sometimes that means I make compromises as the adoptive parent, and that I have to do things that might be out of my comfort zone a little bit. And same with the birth families. And I think that if having those conversations, the focus remains on the children, that's the first stepping stone for success.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have one question here that's popped up. What are some examples of boundaries? So this is a great thing. So a boundary that we have set in our home, again, I don't want to say this is going to work for everybody, but a boundary that we have is that we meet halfway. So traveling, our children's birth families live 4+ hours away. That's very hard for my kids to travel that long. So a boundary that we put is that we're willing to meet face to face for the holidays, but I want to meet halfway because I know that this is a trigger for my kids. We set boundaries as far as when. So we want to celebrate Christmas with our children on Christmas Day, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a December 20th Christmas party together. Also, we talk about this a little bit more, but boundaries around gift giving. Our children specifically, and I don't mean to be jumping ahead, Heather.
It's okay, go ahead.
Or with my children, it's hard because our children come from different families of origins. So my youngest daughter, she's showered with gifts, and I mean more gifts than we tend to give her. And then we have our older children who don't receive those gifts. And that's a hard thing for our kids to try and understand and for them to conceptualize because they're younger. So being very upfront and saying what we feel would be best at this time is one gift. Because we have so many families and so we have auntie and her family, we have birth grandparents, and we have birth mom and birth dad who are separated and they have their spouses. And so it can get very big. And so saying no to some of those and saying, well, we aren't able to at this time, like you said, let's do a Skype call. We will send a letter. And what we do for gift giving is we make handmade ornaments is what we typically do. So we'll do, this year we did sourdough handprints, and we're sending that out with a beautiful card and a picture because we can't afford to spend gifts for all of our family as well as all of our extended family and our children's birth family.
Yeah. So we have some of those same things around gift giving and how, you know, like one gift and we're not having, you know, all kinds of stuff. The other thing that we have done is, so our kids have the same birth mother and that extended family. The other extended families though, as we have met them, we have made it very clear that all of the children are in this family, and we have asked them to be accepting of their grandchild or their niece's siblings as they are in our family. Because we were running into that thing too, right? One of our children, they don't see as much. So it's actually quite beautiful. And, you know, it kind of brings tears to my eyes a little bit, but, you know, the ones that are really involved, they accept and treat all of our children the same. And that is, to me, that is somewhat of a boundary and a respect thing as well. But we did that for our children, to just make it a safe space for them, to make it a loving relationship, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and just being cognizant of time too. I'm gonna.
Yep.
I'll just say one point that I want to kind of get to our wrap it up slide. Then we can maybe have a time for more questions. But
yep.
A big thing for us, and a lot of feedback I've received from other adoptive families, is about keeping it simple because there seems to be onus, especially if it's their first holiday, the big reunion, or they have to make up for lost time, or they want to show, you know, this is how we show love by making it this big extravagant you know, everyone at the kitchen table kind of thing. And that doesn't always work. So a
Right.
boundary that we set is keeping it simple. So sometimes we have a Christmas celebration at McDonald's Play Place.
Yeah.
That works for us. And it's midway. Everyone gets to have fun. We don't need to worry about the financial piece because it's more affordable than having a big Swiss chalet dinner that we know not everybody can afford.
Yep.
So keeping it simple, but again, being very upfront and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm hoping to do. Getting that back and forth and knowing that it's not always going to be seamless. It's not always going to be, you know, the best.
No, it was going to be perfect.
Exactly, that's it. But just knowing that, as with any relationship, that compromise in relationship building is key.
Yeah.
So for families who might be listening to this and they want to know about other specific boundaries, please feel free to reach out to your parent liaison or to us, because with different families, different dynamics and backgrounds, absolutely there needs to be different boundaries made. And that's absolutely something that we can support you guys with. So I'm just going to very quickly go to the next slide so then we can set some time for questions.
So wrapping it up, we kind of titled this one, Wrap It Up, Love It Up. And it ties into what we just talked about too, right? Which one are we focusing on this holiday season? Do you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
This ties into the whole present thing, right? This was just, I happened to have this picture. We had, you know, 5 kids in the house and we have a very small house. So my daughter happened to be sitting in the middle of the pile. And I thought this really expresses why sometimes we need some boundaries, right? And we really need to address presence and gift giving and focus on relationships a little bit more, right? So many times when we first started and everybody was giving all kinds of stuff, a week later, those things meant nothing. You know, the kids would be like on their Christmas list, I really, really want blah, blah, blah for Christmas. And let me tell you, there have been only a few of those things that are actually still around and that meant something. More often than not, you know, they a week later or even a couple days later, they didn't mean anything. But they will always, you know, if we're talking about stuff, the things that we hear are, you know, well, when do we get to go and see all those Christmas lights? Or, well, we always have a real tree. When are we going to pick it, Mom? When are we going to get it, Dad? We always go to the parade with so-and-so. Are they coming this year? Oh, my daughter just said the other day, we're having a bake sale at school, Mom. Is Grandma doing Christmas cookies with us again this year? I need to get some extra ones so I can take them to school. You know, do you think everyone's going to get a gift card to Great Wolf Lodge? Then we can all go again together. Because my sister-in-law did like a family gift to Great Wolf Lodge. And I think when we try to think of relationship building and relationships, we can have something that's, do you want to click the picture? A little more like this.
And this is very quickly, this is the first Christmas we had with our kids home. And I don't know if you can see in the background, there's like heaps of garbage bags. Our kids had presents that they were literally, and this is no exaggeration, from 9 a.m. until about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, nonstop unwrapping gifts because we were so excited they were home and everyone was so excited. This picture right here is what is ingrained in my mind from my kids' first Christmas. Our daughter was special needs. She was non-ambulatory, so she wasn't walking. Crawled over to my father for the first time, who is a pretty closed off, you know, strong, tough kind of guy. She crawled up to him and she lifted her arms up and he picked her up and we snapped this photo. And this is really, when we talk about wrap it up, love it up, this was my love it up moment. And it's really something that we've cherished. I can't even tell you what the kids have gotten for their first Christmas or for their holiday, but it's these moments that really we need to focus on. And especially when we're going through the overwhelming hustle bustle, we're triggered, this is crazy, our kids are going nuts, really focusing in on these moments, I think is the ultimate key to survive.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the whole traditions and rituals kind of thing, because at the beginning, we loved buying stuff, thinking of, you know, like their surprised little faces and how exciting it would be. And then we realized how overwhelming it was for them and for us. And I can tell you now, the things that my kids remember is like the Christmas stockings, and that there's always an orange and socks in the Christmas stockings. We do a show and tell of gifts. They always remember the show and tell of the gifts and taking turns. So we kind of do it like, I don't know if people are familiar with Native culture, with like a listening circle or something, and you get the feather or whatever the item is, and it's your turn. We do the same thing as a show and tell of Christmas gifts, and they look forward to that. So the same thing with somebody was asking about boundaries and whatnot. Well, we used to try to fit everybody in between like the 24th and the 27th. Now we arrange visits, you know, a little bit before Christmas or over the Christmas break. And, you know, we do that phone call sort of thing, right? Because it's just too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think these other two slides,
I'm wondering with those ones, why don't I mail them out? Because
I think we can just email them out. And then we have a lot that, you know, if people are looking for resources, things like camps or respites over the holidays, just connect with your parent liaison or Catherine, myself, post something on the Facebook pages and we can answer it. We also just wanted people to know too, because sometime, I think a few years back, Catherine, we, you know, Christmas Eve or December 26th or something, know the crisis line in your area, because sometimes you need those things. Sometimes it's just too much. So have a plan and know what that is ahead of time.
I have called 911 on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And that has been my reality. I know it's the reality of other people. So know when to reach out and who to reach out to depending on the situation. And having that stuff prepared ahead of time so that when the crisis, if the crisis does hit, you're not in a panic trying to look for it. But please, connect with your parent liaison if you're looking for specific numbers as well. So we have about 5 minutes-ish. So we want to open it up to you guys. Is there any questions that you have, any comments? I know we haven't left. This happens to most of our webinars because we have so much information we want to share. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. We can chat. Whether it's on this webinar, obviously we're more than willing to chat after as well, but we just want to see if anyone has any last questions for the slides that we have skipped over a little bit. We're absolutely going to be mailing them out to you when we send the link to the webinar as well. So we just want to open the floor up for the last few minutes to see if anybody has any questions or comments or wanted to share anything. Are we that good that we just cut it all?
Did we really cover it all?
We know there's more, guys, and we know this is an overwhelming time, but just please know that we're here, and we really hope that this webinar gave you some examples, provided some perspective, and just really to help validate what you guys are going through, because we go through it ourselves. Someone said, thank you for addressing the hugs and kisses expectations for family. This is something I was curious about. Laura, I can tell you that from a very strong Italian background, my parents, my extended family were thoroughly offended. It took a lot of education. It took a lot of just reshifting their brains and understanding about what it's okay and what love looks like and what affection looks like for different people. So for anyone out there who might be struggling with that, please know that this is something that we can help provide some support with as well.
And, you know, I want to get back to that question about boundaries. And I never really thought of this as a boundary, but I guess it kind of fits into that boundary category. Is I know that my kids' window of tolerance is around 2 hours. So when we are planning events, so Christmas, we tried to pack it all in, like I said before. Now we have Christmas morning at our home with our kids. We do a phone call to a couple people and space that out. Then we head to my parents for lunch, and it's around 2-3 hours, but we usually tell them that we'll be there, for an hour and a half to 2 hours so that we have that buffer zone, because sometimes it can get too overwhelming. We used to then go to my husband's family on the same day. We were crazy, but now, we have spaced that out. So we have a much longer time at home. We then go for a walk or do something as a family outside in nature to sort of get everybody calm. Then we go to my parents, usually, or they come to our house or whatever it's going to look like. But we put that time frame in so that we can maybe, kind of avoid the overstimulation. Then we do the other side of the family a different day, like usually Boxing Day or something like that. And once again, that one is usually a little bit longer. So we take snow pants and boots and everything else, and we, go for a walk in the fields, or sorry, do a little bit of a scavenger hunt or whatever it is. We get them outside, get them active, and to break up the time that you're in the house with all kinds of people.
Absolutely. That's a perfect boundary. Okay, I think we have hit our 10 o'clock. We're very good with timing. I'm very proud of us.
Do you want a high five, a fist bump, or a hug?
Let's do an air high five to each other.
All right. Woo!
And thank you, all of you who are here, who I know it's late. You guys, it's definitely past my bedtime. So I appreciate everyone who's come, asked questions. Please know that the learning, the discussions don't end here. Anything that we can do to help support you on your journey, we're going to be here throughout the holidays as well. So if you need that safe place to vent, we got your back on this. So again, thank you all so much. I'm going to stop sharing our screen so you're going to see our faces pop up really big. Here we are. I was like more people. Hopefully you guys found some helpful tips and tricks, and thank you so much for the great feedback that we're starting to receive. Hope you all have a great night, and I hope you all have a very happy holiday.
Yes, and for all those thank yous, you guys are very, very welcome.
We're happy to help. Have a great night.
Happy holidays to you too.
Bye.